Hey y'all, Happy New Year and welcome back to my channel. I'm Regina. Today we're going to get started with some casting resin and our Blitzen IOD mold. This is the first time I've used casting resin. Overall, I don't feel like I did too bad. So it's equal parts A and B. There's an A bottle and a B bottle. And what you're going to do is you're going to pour your A in and then your B in, and then you're going to give it a really good mix for about 30 seconds. And the way you know that it's ready to go is it'll be a nice clear color. Now, you only have a certain amount of time because it sets up within 10 minutes. So you want to work as fast as you can. I'm just going ahead and I'm pouring it into my molds. And then I'm going to use my little coffee stirrer and kind of spread that out. Now, hindsight, these molds are really shallow, and honestly, because of the lighting, I didn't see that I wasn't getting full coverage, or I wasn't getting it filled to all of the ends, but overall the project does end up turning out really well. For this project, I'm only using 3 of the larger snowflakes, but because I have more resin that I don't want to waste, I'm just going to go ahead and cast some of these little snowflakes as well that can be used at a later time. I do over pour on a couple of them, just not paying attention, I guess, and it's okay because in the end we can trim those up. So I just kind of sped up the camera so you could see how quickly it sets up. Overall, I think it was probably around 10 minutes when it was finally ready to pull the cast. So here's when I pick it up and I see I didn't get it all the way to the end of the cavity. So I need to be mindful of that the next time and kind of probably turn the mold around so I can make sure that I'm hitting all of the little intricate details and all of the different spots. So now I'm just going to pluck these out. They come out really easy and they're actually kind of warm. It's a really neat experience. And they have such great detail. I actually am looking forward to working with this resin some more and getting that technique under my belt for sure. Now I'm just taking my little fussy cutting scissors and cutting off the overpour of resin. Now I'll take my Waverly chalk paint in Snow White and give this just one coat. Now, if I'd have poured it like it is in the center properly over the whole mold, I probably wouldn't have had to paint it. But since I did have to paint the larger one, I went ahead and just gave all of them one coat. I'm just making sure that I'm getting down into all of the little details, and I'm using very little paint so that I don't have any pulling. I don't want it to pull up in all of the little crevices and be too thick and take away from the design or detail of the snowflake. Now I have these wooden spools that I found on Amazon, and I will link those below. And I'm going to go in with my Tobacco Road stain and give it a nice stain. Well, as soon as I put this on and started to wipe it in, I knew it wasn't the richness that I was going for. So I do kind of take my paper towel and wipe that back and go in with my Antique Wax by Classic Home. And this is definitely the warmth of stain that I was going for. So what I do is I just go ahead and I give it a good coat and I let it sit for about 30 seconds and I wipe it back. And then I do the top and the bottom. I do give it another coat, 2 coats, and I just repeat the process. I put on a nice thick coat, let it sit for about 30 seconds, wipe it back, and then do the ends. I pick up another one and start repeating the process on that, and I just keep swapping back and forth until I get the richness in the wood that I really like. Now I'm going to go in with some wooden dowels that fit directly into those wooden spools, and I will link those as well. And I'm just giving them a nice thick coat and rolling them 1/4 of an inch and just going over the entire thing until I get the top half done. Once I get that done, then I'll pick it up and wipe it off with a paper towel. And these only needed one coat, and I was happy with the saturation that I got. Once I wipe them back, then I just flip them over and I repeat the process for the other half. After I get all of the spools and dowels stained, I set those to the side to dry. Now I'm going to take my rub and buff in silver leaf and I'm going to just put a little bit on my finger and dab it off. And then I'm going to lightly go over all of the raised edges of each of the snowflakes. At first I'm a little light-handed. I don't want to get it anywhere but on top of the raised edges, so I'm just trying to be really careful. Once I'm satisfied with knowing that I'm being light-handed enough, I do go in with a little bit more ferocity and give those a thicker coat. And look how pretty. You can't tell how shiny it is on camera, but trust me, it really is very shiny and sparkly and just reminds you of a cool winter snowy day. Once I get all of those done, then I'm going to take my Titebond Quick and Thick and I'm going to glue my dowel rods to each of the snowflakes. I'm going to put some Titebond down and then I'm going to go in with my hot glue and put some hot glue down too so that we have an immediate hold, and once the Titebond is dry we'll have a stronger hold overall for longevity. I just continue and repeat the steps for the other two snowflakes, and then I'm just going to set those to the side to dry. Once they're dry, then I'm going to decide how tall I want them, or at what lengths do I need my dowels, and then I'm going to go in with my miter shears and just snip them off. Once I decide that that's the height that I want for the larger one, I'm going to go in and just work with the other two until I'm happy with the way that all three work together. I didn't glue my dowels down into my spools. I felt like they were pretty solid, but if it's something that you want to do, definitely go ahead and do that. Now we're going to work on our mittens. The folks over at burlapfabric.com were kind enough to send me some of this burlap and some of this ticking stripe. I was so excited when I got the box, and I tell you, this project turns out so stinking adorable. I start off by printing a free printable of a mitten. There's so many on the internet, and I trace that down onto my burlap fabric. You might want to use a smaller Sharpie than I did or marker than I did, just so you don't have a lot of bleed through. Once I get that down, I go ahead and trim that out of the burlap and set it to the side. And now I'm going to just repeat that step. I'm going to make 7 mittens overall, so I'm going to do 3 burlap and then 4 of the ticking stripe fabric mittens. On the ticking stripe fabric, I was actually able to just use a ballpoint pen. Now that I have them all drawn out, I'm going to go in and cut out each set. Once I have them all cut out, I go in with this Fabri-Tac glue for fabric, and I glue them together and let them sit overnight. But honestly, I think hot glue from the get-go would have been just fine, because when I went to start stuffing these, a couple of the edges, maybe I didn't have enough glue and it kind of pulled apart and I had to use hot glue anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of them glued together, and like I said, I let them sit and dry overnight, but this is definitely not necessary, especially if you're using the hot glue. Once they're all done, they're already super cute. I'm just going to take some polyfill fiberfill, and I'm going to stuff my little mittens until I'm happy. I do take a little glue stick to kind of shove that stuffing up into the little thumb hole. Once I get it stuffed, I go ahead and seal it up and then massage it a little bit to make sure the stuffing is exactly where I want it to be. And I go ahead and repeat this step for the other 6 mittens. If my cute little projects today are inspiring you in any way, please give me a thumbs up or leave me a comment below, as it helps to grow my channel. Now I have all my little mittens stuffed. So I have some fur trim that I was going to use for the cuff, but I didn't quite like the way it looks, so I used Sherpa instead. I like the thickness, and I feel like it's a little bit more cozy than the fur trim was. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a sanding block. Yes, a sanding block. You could probably use the edge of some blunt scissors as well. And I'm just going to brush this against the fabric to kind of give it a worn look and get a little bit of fraying on each of the mittens. So now we're ready to attach our fur on each of the mittens for the cuff. And I'm just using hot glue and going over just that one section of the mitten and gluing that Sherpa down. I again just repeat the process for all of the mittens. Now that they all have fuzzy little cuffs, I'm going to go in my stash and I pull out buttons and some twine, some bedazzled jewels. What else did I get? Some keys and some little pearls, string of pearls. And I did find these 2 little snowflakes in my stash as well. And I'm just going to embellish them. So I just start the process by just setting each of the items that I think I want to put on the mittens next to the mitten, and just go through and pick out everything that I want to use, and um, just lay it all out before I actually commit. One by one, I'm just going through and embellishing the little mittens. This I made a little pearl garland. I tied off the part of the string, and then I put hot glue on the ends so the pearls wouldn't slide off, and I glued those to the back of the mitten. And then I just tied a sweet little bow out of twine and glued that on as well. And now we have a set of mittens. Now I'm going to do a few things to display these. So first I go in and I snip a little hole in the back of each of the mittens so that I can get a dowel rod in there, because I want to show you how you can display these in many different ways. So the first way is going to be on those stools. On those spools, and then I'm going to go in with some Velcro and I'm going to glue that the length of the mitten, and this is going to be so that we can Velcro this to a piece of twine in the end and also use them as a garland. Now we have these really cute conversation hearts just in time for Valentine's Day. Super easy. You can make these in a couple of hours. And what I did was I took my wooden hearts and some wired ribbon. I used wired ribbon because that's what I had on hand, so I wanted to go ahead and use it up. And I'm just going to cut pieces to do multiple hearts all at one time. Once I get all of my pieces cut up, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut off the wire. So I just go through and trim up each of those wires right off. Now that our wires are gone, I'm going to go into each piece and I'm going to pull a couple of the strings so that we get a nice little fringe on each of the edges of the ribbons. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with my first piece and just take some Titebond Quick and Thick. You could use Mod Podge, hot glue, whatever it is that you want to use. And I'm going to get that spread out and I'm going to get it laid down on my heart. And when I place it down on the heart, I want to make sure that I don't get a lot of glue on the fringe, because what I want the fringe to do is I want it to kind of stick up. So I'm going to go in and kind of pull that up, peel it back where the fringe is, because I kind of want that to stick up, so it's going to give our heart a little bit of texture. And then when I go in with the second piece, I'm going to cut this one down just so I can get the texture in different widths going down the front of the heart. So I just kind of cut this one down and fringed that one. I'm going to get it glued down and I'm going to butt it up against the fringe on the piece that's already there. So once you get your glue on, and again, don't get the glue, you know, completely on the fringe, and butt it up against the fringe that's there, and then pinch the two fringe together so that they're kind of sticking up. And then that'll give you a nice little texture, almost like a little ruffle, a furry little ruffle. And then I just continue the process. I cut pieces down when I want to, just so they're not all uniform, and fray the edges, glue it on fringe to fringe, but pinching the fringe so it stands up. I think it's good to use a glue like Fabri-Tac or the Mod Podge or the Quick and Thick that I'm using, just so that you have time to play with it. It stays a little tacky for a long time before it dries, and you can peel up and move it around if you need to. I should go back and say you probably don't want to use hot glue when you're doing this. So then once I get all of my pieces glued down and my little fringe pieces sticking up, then I'll go in with a pair of scissors and just trim the excess off around the heart. Once I get it trimmed up, I'm going to take an older pair of scissors and I'm going to go around the edges of the entire heart, fraying the material. I kind of want it to look worn and a little tattered. I repeat that for all of the hearts, and you can see how tattered they look, and that's a better view of the fringes that are standing up to give it that detail. These are like really thin hearts, so I wanted to make it look a little bit more high end, so I glued a couple together just to give it some thickness. I just repeat the steps for each of the 4 hearts. Once I get those glued together, then I pulled out some little tags, paper tags from my stash, and I'm just going to take my clickable stamps and put together a couple little words that you might find on those cute little candy hearts and stamp those with my black ink onto my tags. Once I get those stamped, I also want to add some embellishments. So in my stash, I found these itty bitty baby clothespins. If I can find some similar, I'll link it below. And then I found some little heart brads that I thought we could use as well. So I'm going to start with my tags, and I'm going to take my, I believe it's Antique Photo Tim Holtz stamp, and I'm just going to go around the entire tag and repeat that process for each of them just to kind of give it some depth and some warmth. And then I'm going to go in and I'm also going to crumple those up a little bit just to give it some more character. Once I get that done, I'll go ahead and glue our little clothespins down. I've added the brads to the tags, and I will just clip the tags into the little clips. And I think they turned out really cute. They're very simple, very easy to make. You can definitely change them up for your decor if you're more traditional as far as Valentine's colors. Go for it. Alright, so now I'm going to take some more of those hearts, and I've got this ticking fabric from burlapfabric.com, and I'm going to just put some Quick and Thick, a nice thin layer of Quick and Thick on each of these hearts and glue them down to the fabric. I'm just repeating those steps for each of the 5 hearts, I believe, and getting them all glued down. And then, of course, once I get them glued down, I'm just going to go in and trim out the hearts and cut each one just like we did with the prior hearts. So just like the last hearts, I go in with a dull pair of scissors and go around the edges and fray the fabric. I just love the texture this brings to this simple little craft. Okay, so now I'm going to take some drop cloth and I'm just going to cut a slit and give it a nice rip. Kind of thin because this is what we're going to make our tags out of. So I'm just kind of eyeballing it to see. Again, because they're thin, I'm just going to go and glue 2 together just to give them a little bit more thickness. Once we get those glued together, then I'm going to go back to the drop cloth to make the tags. Just kind of eyeballing the measurement I want, and once I get it, then I'm going to go ahead and create some fringe like we did on the others. And I'm going to use my clickable stamps by Recollections. I will link these below. And I'm going to go ahead and just stamp the little phrases that I chose for these out on my drop cloth, and then we will get those glued onto the hearts. Once I get them all glued on, I do go in and just kind of fluff up my trim, my little fringe. She's kind of blowing in the breeze. She's super cute. And I think these turned out really cute too. They're really simple, and again, you can make them your own with any fabric you choose. I hope you like these winter decor items that I brought back from last year and introducing the new Valentine's hearts just in time for Valentine's Day. Thank you guys for stopping by.